David Shuster is back to face himself. Too embarrassing. Poor David Shuster. God can't we love him. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Amped Up with Cliff Schecter. I am Cliff Schecter. And I have this guy named David Shuster next to me, who is, I would refer to as my better half, but that might give the wrong impression. Certainly he's my better broadcasting half, as you know, Emmy winner, former MSNBC.
And
MS Now.
Cliff, and most importantly, because we got to take care of some business, a graduate of the University of Michigan. And,
he's ready to do it. He's ready to do it.
Everybody knows I'm a huge Michigan guy. Love the team, love the school. And I love the game being between Michigan and Ohio State. And I pledged everybody, I wrote a nasty column about Ohio State, all in good jest last week. But I said, if Michigan ended up losing the game, I would humiliate myself by wearing scarlet and gray.
Look at that.
Look at that. And I would sing the Ohio State fight song. And wouldn't you know it, after 4 years, Ohio State finally won the game. So without further ado, because I'm a man of my word.
You still got a jab in there. You heard that, right? After 4 years.
Cover your ears, be musically inclined, and we will fight the team across the field and show them Ohio's here. Set the earth reverberating with a mighty cheer. Rah, rah, rah. Hit them hard and see how they fall. Never let that team get the ball. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. So let's win that old conference now. That's the fight song by yours truly. And now that I've officially humiliated myself, now we can get on to the show.
We're
Sorry to everybody who was offended last week.
Don't get, as I said to people in the comments, getting offended about this stuff. We argue, we're silly. You know, we're going to have on a Connecticut guest in a second, a great doctor, whatever. And I don't know where he's going to come down on this side of the divide. But as a former New Yorker, I'm a Yankees fan. Well, people in Connecticut can go either way depending on where they are. And there's this team to the north that we don't like to talk about much, the Red Sox. And I like to make fun of them. I don't know, do we have 27 championships, the Yankees? All the times that we have ruined their lives, I've liked to do that. So, and people hate me for it, but we're having fun. It's talking trash. Whatever it is, and if our guest is a Red Sox fan and comes on here, he can make fun of the fact that we're the only team maybe ever to have a team down 3-0 in a series and find a way to lose that series to them, and that was the Red Sox. So they beat the great Mariano Rivera. They earned it. But David, that was good of you. Rivalries are fun. The Bush administration, I said Bush administration. I really just said that. The Trump administration is a lot less fun because they're doing terrible things. And obviously, sadly, MAGA folks are around the country. But we're going to have on somebody who is just the opposite of that. We're going to have on a great Democrat, and let me add him to the stage here. Welcome. It's Senator Saud, and I'm hopefully pronouncing that right. You can tell me wrong. Anwar of the great state of Connecticut, state senator.
Woo! Yay, Connecticut.
I know he's in.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, it's absolutely our pleasure.
To answer the question that I asked you before, but for everybody who's wondering, do we call you, because you are a physician, you're a doctor, do you prefer to go by Dr. Anwar or State Senator Anwar or anything else?
For this purpose, right now, Saud is good. Call me
Saud, okay.
Saud works. As I liked what you said earlier. Hey, you. That's kind of, I'm always like, call me whatever you want.
And before we get to the news, do you want to take a side or have an opinion on either the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry or the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry?
Well, I think the Red Sox is the way I'm going to be right now, because if you look at Connecticut, we are actually the top half of Connecticut is with Red Sox. The lower part is with the Yankees, and we have this conversation all the time. And
it's split half. So you're on the other side. Well, we're going to go to a game and maybe at some point in the Bronx, another one in Fenway, and we can have fun making fun of each other, and hopefully we'll have solved some of our country's problems by then. We'll do our best, certainly, to get there. David, do you want to open up with?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to start first with let's I guess let's just start with your background, and then we'll get to some of the news about Pete Hegseth. So you're an expert on sort of lung disease. You're a physician that focuses on pulmonary, I guess. Um, Tell me a little bit about what it's been like serving in the Connecticut State Senate, and are there issues that you have seen at the federal level, whether it's cutting back in Medicare or the Trump administration, how that's playing out for you in terms of the state of Connecticut and what you are trying to do at the state level?
Sure. So David, I've served as a town council member in my town of South Windsor in the past, and I was fortunate to serve as a mayor for 2 terms in my town of South Windsor. And then I've been in the state senate with the third senate district, which represents the towns of East Hartford, South Windsor, Ellington, and East Windsor. And I'm also the senate chair of the public health committee for the state, but and also the vice chair of insurance and real estate committee on housing committee, as well as human services committee and appropriations committee. All of my committees are, if you look at the titles of the committees, we are under attack from the Trump administration, whether it's housing, which we will see in January, that people will be becoming more homeless people in our state and the country. And for Medicaid cuts, the human services, the SNAP funding, the food funding, that's human services, the decimation of public health in this state and the country, that's public health committee. So I'm right in the midst of trying to do from a policy end what can be done to save the people in our state, as there is a outright assault on the well-being of the citizens of the country, but I'm taking care of my state as much as I can.
And is there something specific that you're finding is working in Connecticut or has worked in other states that might say help people who are losing SNAP benefits or with Medicare cuts and et cetera?
So one interesting thing about the Trump administration is they actually tell you what they're going to do.
Mm.
And we have to listen and be prepared in advance, because they have actually done all the things. So for when he had won the elections, right off the bat, we knew what they were going to do to public health. So we started to put legislation in place to protect the people. So they said we'll remove fluoride from the water. We actually put our own fluoride law in the state of Connecticut, the only state in the country perhaps who has this now. That we have the right amount that is there, which is going to save the health and well-being of people. In the same way, they said they're going to get rid of the vaccines or restrict the vaccines or change the recommendations for that. So we made our own oversight committee, and it's going to be advising the public health commissioner what needs to be the right thing to do, not follow the CDC if we don't have to, and then follow our own guidelines based on science rather than emotion of one individual. So those are some of the things that we did in legislation. Now, what we also know is that we can have a conversation for 5 hours because there's so much that's happening. But at least let's talk with the food insecurity that they're creating. So we have thousands of people in our state, in every state, who are on SNAP benefits, which adds up to some $6.20, which is nothing for survival for people. And while it's a supplemental support, but that's the only support for a lot of people in our communities, in our neighborhood. And so what they're doing is they're actually removing some of that support. As we move that support out of our communities, that becomes a very big deal. So in our estimation, some 36,000 to 42,000 people will lose SNAP benefits in our
Mm.
state. And this is going to cause a public health disaster, because the people will not be able to get the nutrition that they need. Children will be impacted, and there's not enough support systems in any society to be able to suddenly take care of some 36, 42,000 individuals to take care of their needs.
Sure.
36 and 42 because they're different calculations, but these are a large
Oh,
number.
they're human beings, right? I mean, however many there are, we're talking about tens of thousands of people who are going to have food insecurity, and you've done something to display that, haven't you?
Yes. So when this came to light that what they were going to do, so I started to live on $6.20. So I did that for about 12 days or so, and it was basically to say that, look, I'm going to join the community that is impacted every single day out of my choice. Most of the people don't have a choice to do this. So out of my choice, I started to live on $6.20, and had a very structured, limited options of food every day. Um, and it was also to raise the awareness that there's not a whole lot of nutrition you can get. And the nutrition that you would get, it is not well balanced. It's not going to be too much proteins. You're limited in those options. You can actually fill yourself with carbohydrates and
Right.
and lose your health and well-being in the process as well.
Did you I mean, how did you sort of like get noodle soup or things like that? Like what is it that you I mean, I remember having to, eat ramen in college, but I was never worried about starving. So I don't want to even make that joke right now. These are people that, have to like is that what you had to do? Or are there other things like that that you had to eat?
So, Cliff, I was doing a lot of lentils and beans, and that was actually the plant-based protein. Thankfully, is not as expensive, so I was loading myself up on those. And then sometimes I was having rice, and more of the rice because it's less expensive. But
Right.
then I don't eat as much rice, but I do not have a choice. So after a day or two of having too much rice, I had to move to um, other forms of fiber if I could get it. So if you are going to eat healthy, the quantity of your nutrition decreases. So that's part of it. I lost like 7, 8 pounds during that time
Oh my
when I
God.
was living in that situation. And you do not see light at the end of the tunnel because you want to have a snack, and then you cannot have a snack. Um, and
Yes.
um, and also, and I would put myself into the shoes of parents. So if they have limited option, the children get the same amount. So I would probably, and like any parent and every parent, we would probably eat even less and make sure our children are getting what they want in the process. And that's where it becomes very real. And I was able to connect with so many people across the country who were actually living this every single day for years. And it's important to know that majority of the people are working.
Mm.
So it's and our Republicans say that people are actually not working and they are trying to game the system. The reality is majority of the people are working. It is the corporations that are not paying them enough to be
Right.
able to eat. So this is a federal subsidy as a corporate support for them because they are not paying, this is a payment for their CEOs to make more money and the executives to make more money.
Can I
And
ask one more
yeah,
follow-up and then go ahead, David? Because I just think this is so important, right?
Yep.
Which is, how did you find yourself? I don't want to characterize what I think would happen. I'll just ask you, how did you find yourself affected in terms of health, energy levels, during that time, sleep, I ask these because, again, people don't often realize how much all of this is connected. In that, if you're not eating properly, there's a good chance that we're like, why don't they work harder? Well, maybe it's because you're exhausted because you haven't eaten anything and you have no energy. Maybe, and you didn't sleep well. And maybe it's because you get hurt easier and all these other things that happen. So, particularly as somebody who went through this and is a state senator who's knowledgeable about that and a doctor, what would you say? I mean, I feel like it's all part of a bigger whole of how we don't support our people. But let me ask you that and see what you say.
very good point, Cliff. See, what happens is you need to have enough food to be able to go to sleep, and your sleep is impacted, and it does have a your ability to focus would decrease as well. I wish I could take a nap in the middle of the day if I could, and in the same way, I would wish I could sleep better at nighttime, and I wish I could have something sugary that I could have that would actually make my glucose level go up so I can sleep better too, perhaps. So you look at all of those aspects. The other thing that happened was I changed, and so after I was done with this, I went with my son and we had lunch, and the check was for $45, and I had tears in my eyes, and I said this was my entire week's budget.
Mm.
So I was living on less than that for the entire week, and now just my one meal was more than 45. So I almost felt that I had done something wrong, and I was taking away from somebody else by going and having a full meal. And so it's like now I don't want to go out into a restaurant. I'd rather be at home and then just eat what I can, but but because you start to feel that there are thousands of people in our neighborhood in our communities, and what also happened is that nobody wants to share that, but when you're out there in interaction, somebody would come to you in a gathering and say, "Thank you for doing this. I've been on this for many years." And these are
Incredible.
and last week we were having a Thanksgiving gathering. I spoke over there, and a mom came with four of her children, and she said that she actually had all the children come to me and talk to me about, because they were all on SNAP support, and it's she's working, and it's not like she's not working, but the cost of living has gone up, and that's directly impacting the people's well-being. And if you have a larger family, it's tricky, and we as a society must take care of that support. I mean, this is the most basic thing for the richest country in the history of the world, to take care of the basic needs of our community members, especially the
Yep.
ones who are not going to go out and ask for anything.
In terms of taking care of members of our community, it feels like, I mean, among, I don't know how to say this, the Republicans that I respect, is their disagreement is not that people should not be taken care of. Theirs is a philosophical argument that it's not the federal government's responsibility to take care of people, that the state should do more, or that private corporations or that communities should be the ones that subsidize people's food assistance benefits. What do you make of that argument?
So, what good is the federal government for? In other words, the federal government has been taking the largest number of taxes from our society, and is the only job for the federal government to attack other countries or other people? Is that the only thing that we spend in the longest historical war of the country? We spent $3 trillion, and that was undone in 10 days. So,
Yeah.
and during the entire pandemic, we survived the pandemic with $1 trillion, and everybody who lost their jobs and the work, we were able to provide them support. So, when is the federal government going to take care of the people? And isn't America first about taking care of the people? And right now we are not even first; we are abandoned. And so I don't agree with them. Yes, charity begins in the local community, but then the local community has so many other things that they would be doing, and they are always going to do that. They continue to do that, but that's not enough. And that's where it comes, and it should be a structured program that would allow us to be able to do it. So I respectfully would not fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, and I would also have to offer, I mean, you know, these same people, they're just fine giving farm subsidies to corporate agribusiness. They're just fine. Gee, the defense budget. What is their defense budget? You know, it changes, but I think it's the size of what the next 9 countries, 12 countries. I don't even know what it is combined. Whenever we needed something new to blow something up, it's amazing how nobody asks who's going to pay for that. But so that is my hypocrisy with those Republicans. If they truly were the kinds of people who were saying, okay, we spend too much money all around, and they really were trying to cut from everywhere, I still would say the last place you cut from is, people eating, pretty basic stuff.
Yes.
But I mean, they're not even, they're not doing that. And this is just nothing compared to what, I mean, do we even know at this point, what's happened to money that Elon Musk and all of them messed around with in Doge? And I mean, it's just.
Oh, and Cliff, I would add to that even if the argument is, as I understand it, that local and state governments and people on the ground in a local community can be more efficient and more useful in terms of spending money than the federal government can. Even if that's the case, well, we have things like block grants for things like education. Why not have, okay, let's give block grants for food assistance, and let's let local leaders like Dr. Anwar figure out what's the best way to distribute this money and make sure that people in his or her community are covered.
And I think in this conversation, there's some things that should be a given. So food, shelter, support system, education, healthcare, those are the things that should be part of our society's safety, because a healthy society is a strong society. And if you're going to compete with the rest of the world, you need people to be healthy, physically, functionally, emotionally, and have a safe space to be able to live. And then you can actually have conversation on where you want to spend money, and is there a luxury item. This is a basic necessity, and this should be a non-negotiable as far as a healthy society should be.
Yep. I would even add to that, and I'm sure you would too. You can't, you're listing a bunch of things, and I'm sure this is one you'd probably list too. Childcare, because when
Yes.
we look at these other, we were talking about these other countries, but even talking about our own situation, this is what's so frustrating. I mean, what they did with the SNAP in that bill, where they said, I mean, they lowered it the age from 18, a kid at home, to like 6 or 7. Yeah, I mean, so you have to work. If you have a 7-year-old, where's that set? What's that 7-year-old supposed to be doing? Like, just what they're going to take care, they're going to go make themselves a chef's meal, and and take care of everything, go mow the lawn, and I mean, it's ludicrous, right? And that's what gets me so angry about this, is that even if you have this, what, conservative, if you want to put it that way, belief people should work for their money, whatever, well, then let them work for it, instead of saying like, no, hey, you got to figure out the kids. I mean, the one thing I will say is, not only all these countries have this, but New Mexico passed, a universal child care plan that's free,
Yes.
which is incredible. And I can't wait to see the data that comes out of there, and comes out of families being more able to actually work, because they're not worried about what their 7, 8, 9-year-olds are doing, or younger.
Yeah.
So I feel like every one of these polls, you see family medical leave. It's paid family medical leave is one of the highest polling things I've ever seen. Like 88%, something crazy like that. It ends up polling at. Everybody's in favor of it. So I kind of feel like that. I don't know. Do you have any kind of
Absolutely.
paid leave in Connecticut?
Yeah, so we have the one of the best Family Medical Leave Act. We have actually a very, very progressive one, which is effective, and it's working to the point that young families are moving to the state of Connecticut for that very reason. But on the child care, Cliff, we saw that during the pandemic. Everybody was talking about economy. There is no economy if there is no child care. There is no healthcare worker. There is no worker if there is no child care. So
Yep.
all paths towards a workforce go through appropriate childcare, and free childcare would just do wonders. And then we actually in the state of Connecticut have been putting a lot more money into childcare and trying to see how we can improve that further. Every year we're increasing this.
Great.
The child care workers, the early childhood educators, are some of the most important workforce members, and they're treated the worst in every society, every town, every state. And what we are trying to do is to make sure if we can write policies to give them health care to their families, and give them living wage, and more than that, and then giving them some support so that they would choose that as their profession. Our children are the most important part of our lives, and in the younger age they are even more vulnerable, and we want the best of the best to take care of them, and that can only happen if we are making sure that they are treated in the manner that they should be treated.
Cliff, to
Absolutely.
set up this next topic, here's my transition. It's a question for you. Do you know why Connecticut is known as the Constitution State?
Do I know why?
Yes.
Do
You
do
can say no.
do
You can say I
do.
don't know. I can give you a hint. Well, basically,
No, I'm just trying to think for a second, because I was a history guy and all of that. But I mean, obviously, the Constitution was Philadelphia, and a lot of the early what we did to fight back against the British was Boston. As much as
that's
I hate to
right.
give Boston, I'm just kidding. But
Well, and you're close, because it gets to, I mean, Connecticut back in the day of George Washington and the founding fathers was one of the first states to support and ratify the Constitution, and that gets me to, we are a very proud state in Connecticut about the Constitution and following the Constitution, and here we have now a presidential administration that seems to, Dr. Anwar, shred the Constitution on a daily basis, including the latest big story, which is these boat attacks in the Caribbean. The Trump administration seems to ignore that part of the Constitution that says only Congress has the power to declare war. Instead, the Trump administration is somehow deciding on their own to go ahead and bomb these boats. And then we found over the last couple of days that there was not enough to sort of bomb the first boat once, but because there were survivors, Pete Hegseth had given orders apparently to not have any survivors. This feels like it's wrong on so many levels, but in terms of just the overall picture of administration that doesn't seem to give a lick about the Constitution, what's your reaction to all of this?
It's very painful, and this is not a sustainable part of society, and so you have a group of individuals who have chosen not to follow the Constitution, but they're enablers who are quiet and are not speaking up and not joining to stop this at so many levels. So it's going to have long-term implications. We are not making any friends from the rest of the world because they see it that this is not there's a human rights part to it. And if somebody's actually done something wrong, let's say there are drugs in that, well, there's other ways to be able to manage them. Actually, you can and capture them and go through the legal process. But if any society we were starting to kill people without even going through the due process, that is not a way to achieve any goals, except you're trying to show that you claim to have toxic testosterone levels in your body. At least you're trying to show that. I don't know, but it doesn't get us anywhere.
Hegseth is trying to show that. Yes, definitely.
That's but it's toxic. It's unhealthy level right now. So if it is truly that, or the he's taking artificial ones. So
Yeah.
but that's the problem. That this is not a sustainable, healthy society to function in this manner.
And
Yeah. I mean,
it's also against the
go
law,
ahead,
right?
David.
I mean, if and Cliff, we've spoken about this. If they've decided that these are enemy combatants, they have to go to Congress and get a declaration of war in order to treat them as enemy combatants. But even in that scenario, an enemy combatant who is defenseless, who's specifically on a ship that's disabled, you can't then attack them. That's against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. On the other hand,
Also, important that they've found new ways to break international law. It's in the Geneva Conventions too that if somebody is shipped, is I guess not shipwrecked, but is stranded, and you've already attacked, you have to arrest them. It is
right,
required.
and even if this is if this doesn't qualify as a war, and I believe it doesn't qualify as a war, there's been no declaration. These are not enemy combatants. These are maybe drug smugglers, although we haven't even seen that evidence. Well, then to the doctor's point, we have ships off the coast of Miami that we are constantly suspecting of carrying drugs. We raid them. We ask them to surrender. We search the ships. If they're drugs, they are charged. That's the due process. The idea that you're just going to blow people up, that's murder. It's murder.
Yeah.
And the sad part is that very few people are talking about this. And this would be the time that if and I would say that I would take that with pride that if first a Democratic president would not be doing it, but the Democrats would stand up and say, no, that's not right. And then the Republicans are completely silent. It's like fascinating at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. There's no conversation, unfortunately, about this is not right.
Yeah. Well, I'll say one thing. You actually, in my estimation, have one of the best senators in Chris Murphy, who has spoken out on a couple different issues, including this one. Frankly, I'll just say my part, and you don't have to say anything and get yourself in trouble, Doctor. But I wish he were the majority leader or minority leader for us. I wish he were the Senate leader right now. Of course, I wish he were the majority leader, but
I'm with you.
Impossible right now because he has spoken out on a number of these things. Good. I'm glad. All right, there you go. I'm glad you're with me on that. And it's outrageous to not talk about because again, there's no people say, oh, nobody cares about international affairs. They do if you know how to message it, if you know how to speak about it, if you know how to talk in ways that get people's attention. And the truth of the matter is that there's no society in history that behaves like this internationally that doesn't bring it home. It's just inevitable that the same tactics they use there will be used on us. We've already seen it with kidnappings, with guys with masks, and who won't identify themselves, and we're supposed to, you're just supposed to let them take you when you don't know who they are and who they, Well, that can get worse. I mean, that can reach the level of what we're doing in the Caribbean. So there's that whole issue too. Is there there are some cities I've seen. It was just I think the Minneapolis was it the police officer said we will not enforce it. Is there any places anywhere in Connecticut that you're aware of, or would you advocate for it that local officials just refuse to enforce what ICE is doing?
Well, what we have tried to do, and we wanted to legislate this and do it in a manner where it would not get challenged. But we have made one recent law in our state that the ICE agents, when they are in one of the court buildings, they are not going to wear masks. They're not going to be allowed to wear masks. So that's one of the things, unless they have a medical reason. And if they have a medical reason, they shouldn't be at the job. So frankly, nobody should be wearing a mask, and then also they cannot arrest individuals in the courthouse buildings. So we're trying to create as much of this, but I think we should have gone far more than that.
Yeah.
We should have actually made sure no healthcare facilities, no educational institutions, no public places where people need their basic needs to be met should be all off the area that they can attack individuals. And then they also have to go through a process. This is a society which is the administration which does not believe in due process, whether it's attacking a boat or whether it's a kidnapping your citizens and then without due process sending them to another country where there's no process, we have no information. They don't even know if they're citizens or not. And if they were waiting for the process to be continued, then they were out of status, which is because of the federal government's lack of action. And why are they getting punished for that? So it's so wrong at so many levels that you start to look at this and then say, how did we get to the point that we are a society which is always about the due process, and now every part of the due process is just being eroded altogether, whether it's wars that they're creating or whether they are taking care of our neighbors or kidnapping our neighbors.
Saud, as a member of the Connecticut Senate, you're a leader in the state, and I want to ask you, as a fellow resident, I saw not that long ago, I think it was the community Facebook group where people pointed out, oh, ICE was spotted, I think in Danbury or at a construction site, and there was then a debate over what should we as concerned citizens do? Is it enough to just go up with signs? Should we go and record? Cliff and I have long been about peaceful protests and stay peaceful. And don't get people hurt. But as a leader of the state, what would you tell to residents if they hear or if they see ICE agents involved in a raid? What should they do?
Well, because there's no due process, I would want anybody who is by our Supreme Court looks foreigner, myself included, not to be around them, and then not to go in that area, and then have a system in place to inform individuals that look, ICE is in that area, there's ICE activity, stay away from that area, and also have citizen witnesses because that is your right as citizen to be able to have a witness. I had somebody who was going to go from one of my constituents to go for fingerprints and the process. And the family was afraid. And I said, you know what? I'll walk with you, and they will have to arrest me before they arrest you. And I walked with them so that person could go through the due process of getting the fingerprints. But there's a fear of anytime you go close to a federal building, you're going to be arrested. And nobody should live in fear just because what they look like and what level of the process of the immigration that they're in.
Yeah, it's sort of the opposite of the society that we always claim to be, want to be. So when it comes to beyond, I'm trying to think beyond just sort of some of the headline issues we're talking about. Are there any other kind of programs that you are particularly proud of that you're working on in Connecticut right now? Anything that maybe might be a model for certain other states or federally, or anything?
Yes.
Chance to chat about.
Number of things. So I'll share with you. We in the state of Connecticut, we have the highest number of vaccinated children in the entire country. So we require that for children to go in schools to be actually vaccinated. And if there is a medical exemption, you got a medical exemption, but there's no philosophical or religious exemption for vaccines. What that has done is it's actually reduced the risk of some of these infection and illnesses that children would get. And that is a very big public health issue in there. We still are on the public health end. We have remained focused on the federal regulations on vaccines or the dangers that are being wrongfully mentioned by the CDC, wrongfully mentioned by RFK. We are actually continuing on with whatever the recommendations are from the state. We are moving forward with the state, which follows our own guidelines around some of those aspects as well. So that's something that's important too. We are trying to find a way to address the Medicaid shortage to deal with that. So our Department of Social Services is working to create mechanisms that 182,000 people will lose Medicaid in our state based on the HR1, the federal bill. And we are trying to make sure that we streamline it in such a process that the damage is minimum, if at all. So that's something that is a very important part of our effort as well. Um, I actually look at our statistics and our well-being. We are doing very well in many respects in our state, but I don't compare it to our neighbors or anyone because we need to have our own compare ourselves to ourselves and then say,
Yeah, I wasn't asking you to compare. Just
Yeah.
I was interested in what
Yeah.
could be a model, for anybody else. And obviously, it sounds like on vaccinations, you've absolutely done that. Which again, how we got to a place where that's even a question. So I think doing what you're doing is so important to send the message that there is no question. You know, yeah,
And there's a lot of other things that we are hoping to be able to do. If I had my way, I've been proposing a bill that we should have a right to housing state. And the issue is that individuals who are going through substance use problems, the mental health problems, that's about a quarter of the population who is unhoused is going through that. I've not been successful in many of those efforts, but we are trying to raise awareness around this as much as we can. We're trying to humanize things when somebody is going through substance use. There could be any one of us who's going
sure.
through difficulties and they're not getting health care, and because they're not getting healthcare, it's easy to get the medications on the street for your anxiety, depression, and other issues. And we are seeing how we can actually do better on that end, and bring them back into the healthcare and then treatments that they need. So housing is an area that I'm working on and trying to raise that awareness. We are actually now going out and getting stories of individuals who are unhoused, and trying to bring a larger and significant level of awareness. We are actually getting the stories of people who have lost their lives, and not talking about how they lost their lives from substances, but who they were. And then we're trying to humanize the issues that are being dehumanized at the federal level. It is illegal to be homeless by the federal government law, because if you are in an encampment, you're breaking a law and they would put you in prison. It's just like they did not, nobody is homeless because of a choice of their own. So it's just that disconnect of the lack of empathy that the federal government has.
Yep.
We're trying to deal with how do we create an empathetic society, and then we're trying to look all different strategies to achieve that goal.
I fear that there are far too many Republicans, though, that lack that empathy, and that the way that you have to try to convince them to go along with spending money on the front end for vaccines or for substance treatment or for mental health is that you save money on the back end, that for every dollar you invest in mental health or in housing, you're saving, whatever, $3-4 on the back end in terms of lost productivity or costs if somebody goes to jail or they get involved in substance abuse. Does that argument generally work with your Republican colleagues?
And it does not, even though financially it makes perfect sense. I'm going to say something that may not be very polite, but I'm going to say it politely. I think one of the differences between the Democrats is that we are willing to do things for the people who are struggling, even though it's not impacting us directly. And the Republicans are willing to help people who are struggling as long as they are themselves or their family members.
Can I translate that into something that's not polite?
Yes.
What you're saying in a nice, polite way, because you're a good person, is that they're greedy assholes. That's coming from me. I just want to make sure that we make it clear: Republicans are greedy assholes, whereas Dr. Anwar actually cares about other people, which is a huge difference between the Democratic and Republican Party, and is also not to argue the Democratic Party is perfect. There's some among us that I wish cared more, but it is a huge general difference. And now I'll give it back to you to be polite again. I just had to get through the fact that they're greedy assholes. All right, I've said it 3 times now. I'm done.
What do you really feel, Cliff?
Nobody ever leaves this show wondering, I promise you. And I appreciate that you are a good person. And you are. Go ahead, David.
I mean, certainly I would think in a state like Connecticut, where, the Republicans tend to be a little bit more moderate than, say, the Republicans in Georgia or Texas or whatnot, are there at least some Republicans who have that sort of empathy, and maybe their disagreement is just over the distribution of funds? Is there a way to sort of find a coalition even with people who are representing in Republican districts in this state?
Are there any Lowell Wikers left is what we're trying to ask. Or
They are. They are. And actually, we do work together. We joke with each other. I will share with you in the Public Health Committee that I'm one of the co-chairs for, almost every bill is a bipartisan bill. Even women's right bill are sometimes bipartisan. We get at least 2 or 3 Republicans who will join us. So we are able to get, I joke about the fact that a Connecticut Republican is better than a Texas Democrat.
Yeah.
That in many cases may be true. Although I make one exception, which is you don't want Linda McMahon coming back here to work on education for you. That won't help. Don't make her like state secretary of education or anything like that. Whatever you do.
Yes, I hear you.
But yeah,
Well,
look, growing up in New York, I remember this series of Republican governors, one after another that were moderate in the same way Massachusetts had them. And it used to be we had a lot of them in New England, and they still exist. It's just there's many fewer. So because so many of them have moved to the right, they can't get elected in places, at least statewide for the most part, thankfully, in Connecticut, right?
I think the part that I miss in my Republican colleagues in Connecticut is for them to stand up to Trump.
Mm.
Rather than whispering in my ears that they don't like him, they should go out and say it. And actually, it'll help them rather than harm them, because it's not like there's a general population who loves what Trump is doing to the people right now. So that would be a good opportunity to stand up and say, no, I don't agree with this. But they are silent.
Yeah, considering he's floating around, first of all, he's at the lowest approval rating of any president ever, and the highest disapproval, which is people don't always get the disapproval, because there can be a lot of undecided. When you hit 62, 63% who are saying we really don't like this guy, that is sort of incredible and not usual. So I can only guess that Connecticut's to the left of that, and it's probably even a higher disapproval rating if you look at how Connecticut is overall versus the country.
Yes.
And so I would think your point is right on. There's only things. Look, if Marjorie Taylor Greene can break with him, I would hope that some Connecticut Republicans can, right?
Yeah, it is. It's about time. I don't know what they're waiting for. Epstein file. You just keep looking at it, and then you wait and say, is it going to be now? Is it going to be now? And then he keeps going. Is it going to now murder people? Is it going to be now? No. Okay. What is your red line? And there is none.
Do you think they're scared for their personal safety? I'm sure some of these folks have said this federal, in DC and other places are, because obviously he can send out one of his stupid, unhinged statements and really, he can get you threats and that kind of thing. Do you think that's part of it here?
Perhaps that is, but that comes with when you throw your hat in.
I agree 100%. I wasn't making an excuse. I just been asking. I think
that may be a case. Yeah.
If you, my feeling is always if you can't, if you're not willing to take that risk, then you shouldn't do this job. You can do any other job.
Cliff, you'd be very proud of me, because I was on an international cable channel earlier with a person who was a friend of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the topic of conversation was, why is Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving? Is it because of Trump? And the friend said it's because of her personal safety. She feels threatened now. And without missing a beat, I channeled Cliff Schecter and I said, that's so interesting, because it speaks volumes about her politics. Because remember, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the same person who nearly 10 years ago called Nancy Pelosi a bitch. She said all kinds of things about AOC that made Democrats not go crazy and hate her guts. But after 9 years of Democrats hating her guts, she never felt like her safety was threatened. After just a week of being called a traitor by Donald Trump, then she gets all these violent threats and feels like her safety is at risk. And that's when she has to leave.
Does that not explain it?
Who's carrying out the violence in our society.
Right. Does that not explain it all? You did miss one thing there, though, is all that time she had to worry about me, because I control those Jewish lasers, and I could have targeted anyone at her at any time and taken her out. So she did have that to worry about. Sorry, couldn't help myself. But I think you make a really important point there, David. Again, there's violence on the left. There may be some faction on the far left, I don't know, that threatens some things here and there. But we're so vocal, as you said, about nonviolence. That is what works. Massive nonviolent protest, if necessary, massive strike or civil disobedience, but we're not. This is not something where when you go and you cause violence, obviously not only do you get hurt, do innocent people get hurt, they'll come back with more and hurt you. It just and you'll lose sympathy, and it just it gains you nothing. So it is good to sort of hear that in that way. Not good that she's getting threats. Whatever I feel about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I loathe her, but I don't want anybody getting personal threats like that. But it does say something. If she really is leaving because she's scared after what? One tweet by him or two? Think about how many things he sent out about Biden, about Obama, about numerous members of Congress who don't have that kind of security that former presidents have. And regular people. Like any of us takes the risk that that we could be the putting one of his tweets at any time, and you don't know
Well,
what you
and
could do.
given the coarseness of our political discourse these days and how rough it is, Dr. Anwar, first of all, what does your family think about? I mean, you've got a public profile. You're a elected state senator. You're out there. It's a tough environment politically at the federal level and also in some cases at the state level. What does your family think about it?
Well, so I get my share of threats too, and some of them have led to arrests as well. So recently, somebody was arrested who had a list of people they wanted to eliminate, and I was on that list. So there was an arrest around that, and there was threats to the point that we have to get local police, state police, Capitol Police involved. I've surpassed 10 in the last since the anti-vaxxer groups now to the white supremacist groups now at this time for
You're
other
touching
groups.
all the various groups of wonderful people out there. Have you heard from the Klan yet, or no? They're still they're waiting their turn, and the NRA after that. And I'm sorry, go ahead. I can't help it. I don't mean to make light of it. I get it. I'm sure not as many as you, but David and I have gotten our series of threats too, and it's upsetting. Let me ask you. I mean, do you have to have any sort of specific? And obviously, don't tell us what they are. And I know you wouldn't. But do you have to put any security in place or anything of that nature because of it?
Well, we remain very closely in contact with the Capitol Police. We're in contact with the local police as well, and they track some of the individuals, and then the threats that come to me through social media and beyond. They track that too, and then follow up on each one of them. And those are some of the things that are happening, and then we're obviously reassessed how the house is going to be looked at, and so we're creating our protection. So this
Good.
was not an issue ever before, but it has become recently much more so, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. I mean, again, it's you mentioned. I mean, we've cut mental health funding, and I don't want to. Most people who have any mental health ailment are peaceful. So let's say that start off with no stigmas, but there's a small percent. Obviously, you can get very violent. We've released large groups of criminals, like the January 6th perpetrators out there who are looking, and again, an issue I've often worked. I think I did some work in Connecticut. I'm trying to remember when. An issue I worked on for a long time was on former Mayor Bloomberg's gun initiative, Every Town for Gun Safety. And I mean, we had some successes. We had a lot of successes because as crazy as it is, it would be a lot worse. But not even having universal background checks, not even having, universal red flag laws, not even having, an assault rifle ban. I believe your state has all these things I'm talking about. But the problem with guns is they cross state lines, and so, I mean, that's, I always use when I would argue with, people on the right or other places, I would say, the one place where it's actually all very consistent, low gun ownership, robust gun laws, very low gun violence, Hawaii. Why do you think that is? Oh, right. They can't just drive guns across state lines from other states. And so it does help if your state has strong laws, but and you happen to be surrounded by states that mostly have strong laws too, which is good. You're not in the crazy zone that I'm in here, where we're surrounded by some states that have some of the worst laws. So, I mean, it's, I can understand why you'd be concerned, and I'm glad you're concerned enough to take care of it, because some of that is horrific. And I've had friends on some of those lists, and I mean, it is a problem now. Social media and is the other thing, which we didn't say.
Let's can I add one more thing on the gun thing that you're talking about? One of the biggest risks is you're 7 times more likely to hurt yourself when you have a gun. And then so there's so much more testing than an assessment needs to be done, because it's not a threat to others, it's a threat to yourself and having underlying issues that would put you at risk. And that's why it's a common sense approach. And thankfully in Connecticut we have robust laws around this. But if you look at the data, I think that should be one good reason for the rest of the country to at least say that, hey, let's see how we can reduce some of those risks significantly.
Yep.
Connecticut, I love to. I mean, like I never imagined growing up that I would ever live in Connecticut. It just wasn't on my radar growing up in the Midwest. But here I am, and I have to say, over the last several years of living here, one of the things that I'm so proud of, and I know other people in Connecticut are so proud of, is that our educational system is great. The schools are awesome. Healthcare is excellent. There's better mental health resources, et cetera, et cetera. And for those of us who have kids who have special needs, the schools are really, really good in their IEPs and everything else, the support programs. The fear that many of us as parents have had, Dr. Anwar, is that if the federal government does eliminate the Department of Education, even if money is coming to the states, it still has to go through the Department of Ed for things like special education. So what at a state level can be done or has been done to prepare for massive changes like that?
So right now, what we've done is the good thing about Connecticut is we are hyper local. We are one of the two states in the United States that do not have a county form of a government. We have hyper local state the town governments where we have the Board of Education in 169 towns, and they obsessively look at the education and the funding. So so we have been able to put extra funding every year to take care of special needs children in our communities. And every school system takes pride in taking care of their children. And they compete with each other who's doing a better job in some of those. So in my four towns that I represent, we're actually trying to see how can we combine resources. And the arguments we get is we're doing such a phenomenal job, we just want to enhance our own rather than combine with anybody. So it's so hyper local. So when that would happen, the town will put more resources into this, and the state would put more resources into this, because that is something that I doubt if there's going to be two opinions, whether it's Democrats or Republicans at that point, because special needs is across the board. That's something that gives me pride about where we are at this time. But we are hoping that federal government would not do that to every day. Can I tell you something that happened today? It's like every day you open the newspaper, there's something new. We passed a law about nursing home ratios for the nurses, proven for 40, 50 years that if you have the right ratios, the patients do better. The federal government just took those ratios off the table. They have removed that nursing ratios for patient care. So the elderly who are in nursing care facilities, they are not going to be able to get the care that they should get. And then we had put in a law to obsessively make sure that the most vulnerable, our seniors, would get support, and that's gone today. And it's just like every day you're almost scared. Who else are they going to attack? Which
Right?
other vulnerable group are they going to attack today?
Well, Elon Musk needs $1 trillion package because he can spend all that money, obviously, somehow.
Yeah.
I just some of the it's not absurd anymore as much as it's actually obscene. I find it gross that anyone can look at that and be like, so there are people that can't get treatment they need, and there are people that can't eat and whatever. But this person, I mean, and I'm not even talking about the fact that just I'll stay with a word I said you before, and not go to new words. That he's one of the biggest assholes in the world, but like, I mean, he's a terrible person. But even if he were a good person, $1 trillion. I mean, again, do you? I mean, here's an interesting one along those lines, because obviously corporations are incorporated in states, and states do have some say. Is there any ways that you guys have looked at in Connecticut and reining in? Because I kind of feel like monopolies at this point are so absurd. Corporate governance is so ridiculous that when corporations were originally, had charters and the community mattered and workers were in there, and now it's just shareholder value and this and that, and they don't think about any of that and pay themselves absurd salaries. So I'll stop talking for a second and let you. Have you done anything?
Yes.
Well, I love it right away. I'm moving to Connecticut. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Here's what is my op-ed is going to come out within the next few days. It's going to be local in Connecticut, but it's going to be relevant for the entire country. The op-ed is as follows. First and foremost, we have to realize that we are no longer a democracy. We are a corporate oligarchy in the United States.
Yep.
So if you look at the presidential inauguration, you saw it was a tech corporate oligarchy that was there. So the whole concept and the death of democracy happened with Citizen United, and
Yep.
Citizen United was the one that said the corporations are people. Now here's the technicality, and the state of Montana has looked at this, and I'm hoping to Connecticut to be able to do this. So the state of Montana has said that the corporations are entities that are given the rights by the state, not by the federal government or by the Supreme Court, by the state. So if the state can, in their constitution, change that the corporations will never be involved in the political process or take their rights away as being an entity outside of the business in the business of acting in impacting the elections, then you actually have taken it right at their birth, their opportunity to do something wrong. So if we can do this, so Montana is trying it. It's going to be tested in the Supreme Court. I'm writing that op-ed for Connecticut to do the same thing, so that if all 50 states did that, we are in good position. So because in order to undo this, we will need a constitutional amendment, and our society the way it is, it's less likely going forward. But
Yeah.
the states, we may be able to do it. So I'm hoping that this would be a model that we can follow across the entire country to change the Citizen United at the state level.
Well, especially if a lot of the major states that have large corporations in them, which a lot of the bigger states are blue. I mean, obviously, New York and California come to mind, have a lot of corporations. I mean, because I thought about this, trying to think of novel ways to rein these guys in. And I thought, well, corporations are incorporated in states. And the other one, of course, is I wish I know they're doing some things, but I wish our attorneys general would be more active in anything that touches their state that these guys do, and any way they can get jurisdiction to sue them. Because those, to me, seem to be some of the ways we can push back on monopolistic power, push back on billionaire power, push back on the corruption of the Trump administration, right? I mean, so what you're doing, I hope you'll send forward your op-ed and we'll share it, because I mean that sounds great. I know the Montana was one of the places that had a law that banned corporate um, contributions that Citizens United overturned. So I'm not surprised they're looking at it. But there were other states too. We kind of got that concept way back when, that concentrated wealth. Every one of these people should have to sit down and read Teddy Roosevelt, what he said about concentrated wealth and what that does to a democracy.
Well, in Connecticut, we actually have a population that could read it because we have a really good education system.
So there's that too, you see?
In Ohio, I guess we'd have to send you the Cliff Notes version.
Oh my gosh, you had to do it.
Kidding. I'm done with the bashing Ohio. I got to say,
Cliff Notes in there too, just so you could hit me. I mean, it's like all around.
I have a question, Dr. Anwar, and that is, and this is a little bit sort of on topic, but off topic, and that is Governor Ned Lamont. He is not going to be around forever. You've been in the state Senate, I think, for 6 years now. Any thoughts about running for governor or seeking higher office? I mean, we could use you.
Yeah, I'm already thinking I'm supporting you if you run. So you sound awesome.
You guys are too kind. I'll tell you what I'm up to right now. So I'm going to run for my 5th term in Senate next year, the state Senate. And a number of people, you'd be surprised how many people have asked me to run for office. But and I'm also a critic of Governor Lamont. The reason is that he's not meeting the moment at this time. So I wrote an op-ed asking him not to run for the 3rd time, and I've got another op-ed that I'm cooking right now about why he should not run for the 3rd term. The issue comes down to is that when you're not running for office and you're criticizing an individual, you have far more value to change the policies. End of the day, it's going to be about policies. So there are other people running. Josh Elliott is a progressive who's running. He's a friend of mine. He is right on the policies, and he would agree with all the things I'm saying and you guys are saying today. But he's not raised the same amount of money because Governor Lamont can write a big check, and everybody else has to go through their raising the funds.
Right.
But I'm a critic of any time anybody is not making a good policy, and I'm across the board, whether it's Trump or Republicans or even my Democrat governor when he's not doing the thing right.
Good for you for being willing to speak out. As so many aren't on this. That's why I should have known right when you agreed with me about Chris Murphy.
If you want to primary Ned Lamont, you've got my family's vote. We'll be out there with the placards and the yard signs. You've got it.
You want to know the irony of this is one of my early races I worked on was Ned Lamont taking on Joe Lieberman from the left, because that was back when Ned Lamont was the guy from the left, and Joe Lieberman was, hey, let's send more money to Iraq and get more involved in all the insanity and block. It was the vote that blocked a public option. We would have a public option today if Joe Lieberman had voted for it, by the way. And now let Ned Lamont is so. Can you say? I mean, again, I haven't talked to any of them since that was 2006. But I'm interested. What is it that you found about him that you when you say he's not meeting the moment? What do you think he's not doing?
So the Ned Lamont of that era was the one I was actually door knocking, raising funds for him at that time. Same as you were talking about, and he is a nice person. He was way on the from our perspective right side of the history at that time, and progressive. In his first term, he was progressive. In the second term, he just changed a little bit and surrounded himself from the richest of the rich people, and he wanted to make them happy. And the people you need to spend more time with the ones who are struggling. That will shape your positions on issues. He takes the right positions, but we have to fight for him to do that, take that position. And that's the so if I'm voting for a Democrat, when the SNAP funding is being taken away, when the Medicaid funding is being taken away, I want that person to be right there saying we will take care of it rather than me having to fight for him to take care of it.
Absolutely.
That's the difference. That's a frustration.
It makes me sad that that's happened with him because he was such an avatar of this growing grassroots online left at that time. Brought a lot of us together because that was such an easy fight to be in favor of. And now to see that he's sort of sold out is really a shame.
Dr. Anwar, for everybody who wants to support you and follow you, where's the best places online, social media? Where can people find you?
So I'm on Facebook. I'm on other place as well. I'm not as active on the X. It takes too much of the time, and it's just hand-to-hand. But Facebook is where I'm more active. And
So do you have like a Facebook group where people could come and follow you, kind of
yes,
thing?
Please.
We'll do that. Are you at all on any of the other Substacks?
Substack, I'm behind, so I'm going to do the groundwork for that very soon. I'll be there.
All
right. And if we need to come to a good doctor, we can call and make an appointment with someone at your place.
Well, hopefully you will have good breathing, good lungs, because we need strong lungs to be able to yell and scream what needs to be said.
But I know I can't say asshole.
I guarantee that Cliff's lungs are very strong.
Lungs have been okay. I have other parts that people question, maybe certain other things, but the lungs are all right.
So it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. And as one Connecticut resident to another, God bless you for everything that you've been doing on behalf of this wonderful state and behalf of all of us who live here and beyond. We really are so lucky to have you.
And there, folks, just see before Dr. Anwar goes, there's his Facebook. Go follow him right now. I mean, you can tell the fact he's willing to stand up to federally, and in the state to Democrats, and because the governor is courageous of your own party, and not you'd be surprised how few do it. So this is somebody you want to get behind. So also, thank you for joining us. We will absolutely have you on again, and I can't wait to see that op-ed. We'll definitely have you on at some point to talk about that. So I think you and I are pretty simpatico on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Cliff, good show.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Enjoy yourselves. Go out there and have a good day and have a good night and do something fun, relax, and get ready to fight again tomorrow. And as I always say, as the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.